props to you. But it says here that you died choking on a peanut. You must have been indulging in the free snacks available at the orgy. Personally, I usually skip any of the snacks available at orgies because it just gives me indigestion, and I want to be performing at my peak when I'm involved in such an athletic activity. But I digress. It is my job to welcome you to hell, first of all, so welcome to hell. But also, it's my job to sort you into one of the circles of hell to find out where you belong and to get your initial punishment underway. Okay, so this is actually my punishment. My punishment is this 9-to-5 desk job. I have to do all the paperwork and greet people like you. And since I'm extremely antisocial, extremely lazy, and since I hate paperwork and the just soul-crushing, boring nature of the 9-to-5 office job, this is my hell. This is my eternal punishment. But yeah, yours might not be quite the same. So to begin with, are you familiar with the 9 circles of hell? No? Well, luckily, we are provided with a little pamphlet to hand out to newcomers like yourself. Now, I personally don't hand out any of these pamphlets because I know that everybody just throws them in the bin immediately. So I'm going to read you the pamphlet instead. Okay? It's very short and brief, so don't worry, but you were waiting in that queue for a very, very long time. And of course that is your first punishment coming to hell, because waiting in queues is one of the most tormenting experiences someone can go through. Okay, but the first circle of hell is called Limbo. So Limbo is actually the nicest circle of hell by far, and this is basically just the place where the unbaptized go and where pagans go. So anyone that wasn't following the one true religion, as God likes to call it. Yeah, so the second circle is sodomy is considered violent. It's generally a good time, in my opinion, especially when God put the male G-spot in the butt. Why would he do that if sodomy wasn't a good thing? I guess God just has a sense of humour. And then we have the 8th circle, fraud. And this 8th circle is actually subdivided into 10 separate trenches, which I won't go into because quite frankly it's very tedious. But as you can imagine, fraud, con artists, people that trick others out of money, valuables, property, things of this nature. Boring things, in my opinion. And then there's the 9th circle, the final circle, treachery. For traitors, a frozen wasteland, supposedly the worst circle of hell. But I suppose that every circle of hell seems like the worst circle to its denizens. Okay, so that was an interesting little pamphlet there. Hopefully you found it very informative, and hopefully you were paying attention, because one of these circles is going to be your home for the next eternity. Okay, so in order for me to just get a better understanding of you as a person, where you belong and what your punishment should be, I'm going to ask you a series of statements, questions, something like that, and you can tell me how much you relate to them. But I want you to keep it nice and short and simple for me. So I want you to give me a rating on a scale of 1 to 10. Of course, 1 being this statement doesn't relate to me at all. 10 being this statement relates highly to me. Okay, and I must stress as well that you have to be honest with your answers, because if you're dishonest, you don't want to know what happens to you if you're dishonest. Let me just put it that way. Okay, so do you like my pencil case, by the way? It's one of the hounds of hell. Yeah, guards the gates of hell, you know. Keeps everything in order, keeps people from escaping. So don't think about escaping, otherwise you'll be facing a mighty hound of hell like that. Okay, so the first statement is, my greatest fear is losing my social structure. Things like losing my job, losing my work, losing my acquaintances, my friends. How would you rate that? Okay, so you relate to that. Okay. The next, my deepest fear is being alone without family or friends. How relatable is that to you? Okay, my greatest fear is to look back and regret not having done something because I was afraid to do it. Okay. I fear being negatively judged by others. My greatest fear is not being successful financially. My biggest fear is being left out, abandoned, or ignored. I have a fear of sudden, loud sounds. My greatest fear is death. Would you say your opinion on dying has changed now that you've actually died? Interesting, that's just an extra question for my own personal interest, I suppose, my own curiosity. Next, I fear that I will always be a laughing stock. fear not being able to find a job. My biggest fear is not being good enough. My biggest fear is that I won't be able to have children. My greatest fear is that one day I will realize that I have lived my life without doing what makes me happy. I fear success. My greatest fear is loneliness. My biggest fear is anything bad happening to my children. My greatest fear is walking in a place with suspicious and dangerous looking people. I fear being a failure and a disappointment to both others and myself. My greatest fear is never finding happiness. I fear looking back and seeing that fear guided my decisions. I fear being sick. My greatest fear is being broke. My biggest fear is making a mistake and looking stupid. I have a fear of failure, particularly the paralyzing fear of not taking the next step or action because it won't be perfect. My greatest fear is that I will never feel fulfilled or at peace. My deepest fear is failing to be a good person, so that I find I let others take advantage of me and that I don't stand up for myself. My greatest fear is to be, quote, found out. That people around me will discover that I'm only pretending to be smart, pretending to be strong, and pretending to be confident, but really, I am not any of those things. I fear that I am wasting my life. My biggest fear is that although I do things with a lot of dedication and love, people think and say that I want to take their money or take advantage of them in some way, and I fear being criticized for that. My biggest fear is not being liked or loved by anyone. Okay, thank you for answering those. Thank you for being honest as well. Obviously this information is all going to be used against you. It's going to be used to select an appropriate punishment for you in whichever circle of hell you get designated. Okay, so obviously I'm just the guy that welcomes you to hell. I collect the information and then I pass it along to my superiors, to the psychological demons, and they're going to be taking a closer look into your psyche Exactly. Okay, once again, thank you very much for answering the questions and for being quite pleasant to talk to and interact with, actually, making my punishment just a little bit easier.